Barbie movie. It's on the lips of almost everyone out there talking about it. Is it woke? Is it not? You want to know my thoughts? It's gonna be quite an interesting ride because I happen to have a theater perspective. So it's why there's many different avenues, many different videos to explore this issue from. Let's start with something I sort of like. Let's start with a little bit of the debate between Doomer Media and, let's just face it, Stitch. Stitch, I always say that wrong, and he probably holds it against me if he knew who I was. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, let's go this way here.
She becomes a real woman. We don't even know why. We don't understand her motivation at all.
Yeah, why does she want to become a real woman at the end?
Wait, she's uncomfortable with living in Barbie land because she went to the real world and she basically got touched with existential dread and now she can't go back. It's like the fucking Joseph Campbell plot point. Like she returns, but she returns changed.
This is the same point that Sean Head's boyfriend made in his video. Barbie, the movie, is conservative. So that was quite interesting. I think it's flawed. Of course, anyone who watched, this is a particular edit that I cut up and you'll see soon enough. But yeah, I think Doomer is ultimately wrong. There is the component of the archetype, but that's absurdism for you. Same sort of arc, but less of the logic. We'll be getting into that.
And she can no longer appreciate the Barbie world.
None of that is in the movie.
Yes, it is.
That's all headcanon.
No, it's not. It's in the fucking movie.
And I disagree with Adam here. Who's Shoe's new boyfriend? Some post-liberal conservative. I've watched a few of his video, like Esquire or something. Maybe I'll look it up in a bit because that might be an interesting video to also explore this under. As I said, powerful stuff, but yeah, well, honestly, I can't tell what the hell this movie was trying to say. It's because I don't believe it was really trying to say anything. And if it's a fault with the movie, I will agree. It's more of a perspective thing here.
Movie.
That's the
entire thing.
She doesn't say anything like, "Oh, it's."
She absolutely does.
What lines does she say that lead you to believe that she's unable to?
Immediately following the reestablishment of the matriarchy and the accomplishing of seemingly the primary goals of the plot, Barbie starts talking about how she's still not happy and how that didn't fix anything. And then Ruth comes out of the and that's when Ruth shows up.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense. No, that does happen, but that doesn't really. The reason I say that's bad filmmaking is because she hasn't even existed in the new.
This is wrong here. It's not bad filmmaking. That would be considered bad writing. Also, Stitch's sort of a fix on this would actually make it longer. Theoretically, you could cut it other places, but that's besides the point. I sort of have this problem with people in video games when they say they have a bad story because like Dark Souls and other games like that, which has environmental storytelling. There is a lot of elements within the text, more in the acting that sort of translates that she's not happy in Barbie land. I mean, you don't have to see it or not. Maybe, Margot Robbie's acting was not concise enough. Yes, explanation definitely would have expanded on that for a lot of people, but I think it's clearly shown within the acting. Writing wise, it definitely would be weak if the writing wasn't there in a book, but for actual film, the actors don't need to actually say things. And for a character like Barbie, who is sort of infantile or at least naive to the world to actually find the words to express this, she just shuts down. You think she can communicate these I think places in the script where she actually communicates some ideas, knowing some stuff, it comes apart a little bit weird, but there's a sort of a mirroring effect between Barbie and the mother. It's sort of like a the sort of parable about the dream. The man who dreamed he was a butterfly. When he woke up, he didn't know if he was a man or butterfly. That sort of moment there. Now, this could be a off reading. Okay, Andrew, she definitely feels uncomfortable. It doesn't connect with becoming a real girl. I agree. The real girl part is a little odd. That's something that's a mystery to me. Well, I could speculate on it, but I'm not going to say anyone who's saying her decision to become a real girl. I do know that the movie does show enough elements in the story to show she doesn't feel right in Barbie Land anymore. Because in Barbie Land, she's just Ken, stereotypical Ken girlfriend. She wanted to be more than that. Why? They don't really establish that. I will agree with that. Why does she want to be more? And just not satisfied with that role in life. Why other people see feminist messaging in this film, I see this more, it's a little bit egotistical on both Robbie and the director / writer. I think a little bit of projection, but I sort of got into the nitty gritty with a lot of the interviews, so I got a feel for it. I can understand why it doesn't translate very well to certain audience members who's expecting epic storytelling. I agree with Doomer here. It is very experimental, and I'll be getting into the experimental components I see in the film.
Or the re-old society for like a second before she comes to this conclusion. It's not like there's a scene where everything's back to the way it was, and it's just different. She sees everything in a different light because she's tasted reality. She's tasted from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and she can never go back. She can only go forward.
Yeah,
They're being assholes here. But it's fun assholery, I will agree. Can I not speed up my own video just a little bit? Because we've all seen this or seen enough of it to at least.
That is in the movie.
You have every reason to believe that strict causality is being thwarted purposefully.
Okay.
So complaining that strict causality is not being followed is just ridiculous. Because the
character motivation has nothing to do with strict causality. Okay.
I just explained the character motivation. You just denied that the scene.
Out of headcanon, that wasn't in the movie.
Wait. We're criticizing. You can have a movie where every character just explains their motivation, right? But we generally acknowledge that showing that motivation impact the characters is much better than them just making a declaratory statement about it and just becoming and saying, "This is how I'm motivated now." And you're like, "Well, but why?"
Oh my god!
And you're saying, "Well,
hold on a minute." So Stitch is basically saying the same thing that I was saying, but he doesn't believe the actors portrayed that without explaining it properly here. That's what I'm getting from this particular line here. Adam is the big dum-dum here, so he definitely does want it explained throughout this whole thing. He needs it explained. Stitch here, he definitely acknowledged that it does not need to actually be said. I think for him, it just was a failure of the film, the themes, but I really think he's off in other areas. So that would skew his perspective on this movie. I'm sure I said to Tiemann last night when I was recording with him, this is sort of a Rorschach test, but I think even Adam said it. I don't think either one of these guys thinks this movie's woke. They just think it failed in what it was trying to do, and they doubt the experimental nature. This is where I diverge from them. Yes, I think most of this was intentional. Maybe any sort of themes you can find in it is not intentional, but just a byproduct of how it's made.
On a kid movie, it's fine.
Her motivation is completely clear. I can chart it out scene by scene. Right. In the beginning, she's enjoying her fucking life, and everything is set up in a very particular way. And then the scene repeats, and then we have the fucking inciting incident where she starts having fear of death.
She does not have those. Those are the motivations of the mother in the real world.
She experiences them.
Yes, but they aren't motivated by her. She perceives them as a problem to solve.
Doomer's here's right. The weird connection, as I said, the dream of a butterfly. Is the man a butterfly or a man? It's that sort of logic that the mother Barbie relationship works off of. Actually, sort of also breaks apart from what I saw in an Easter egg. Oh God, that actually makes it worse. The Easter egg I found out, it sort of breaks the logic. Maybe that's intentional for people who caught it. We'll see.
They're shoved upon her by an external
Yes, by an
force.
external force. It's completely.
Yes, but that is her motivating factor, is to get rid of these things.
Not
Yeah,
her
right.
motivating
Yes,
factor.
in the beginning, it's to get rid of that. It's just
Okay,
return order to her.
It is her motivating factor. It's just not intrinsically caused. It's extrinsic, but it is
Right.
her motivating factor.
And that, listen, that's fine. Again, the beginning of the movie, classic. She has to. Her world is thrown to chaos from an external source. She goes on a journey to return order to her home. I don't have a problem with any of that. But it's just after that, her motivation just seems to go to the wayside. The fact that her agency in the story seems to go to the wayside, and she becomes basically a hanger-on for the rest of the story.
Wait,
Yes, and that is the absurdist theater of the absurd cycle here. This is why I found the comical timing of him going into the theater of absurd. But as I said, death of the author is definitely something you can consider why factoring in all this information. So, how that actually plays out in people's perception is a different matter altogether.
okay, the point where you're saying that she loses agency is the point where the entire rest of the movie is her talking to Ruth and then going to the gynecologist. That's the only thing that happens after that point.
I know, but wait, no. She goes to the real world, okay? So she's on the journey to fix herself. Then she gets saved by the mother by just happenstance, because the mother just happens all over the place and happens to see Barbie there, okay? And then as soon as Barbie's saved by the mother, Barbie doesn't do fucking jack shit for the rest of the movie. That's like half the movie's left.
It's even
No,
it's even worse
You know what?
because like she doesn't get.
Yeah, that is a freaking bold-faced exaggeration. Half the movie. It's a comedy show, so, little exaggeration, I guess, will work with this. And also triggering Doomer is sort of a pastime that the chat loves, and even Doomer knowledge. You'll get even more chats if you trigger me and I piss off the chat. Gotta love Doomer sometimes, and other times, you tolerate him.
Into the box, and she doesn't even know why she's not getting into the box. She doesn't
No,
even know.
I changed my mind. The movie is about Albert Camus, okay? The Barbie experiences existential dread and the fucking emptiness of nihilism of the real world, okay? And she realizes that she can't go back to childhood, okay? And she has to stare that in the face and decides that in the face of all that pain, she is going to stand up and become a real person and experience adulthood with all.
Whoa, did I not do the edit? Oh, I repeated it. Oh, sorry. Ooh, I must have repeated this. Whoopsies. I might as well just skip ahead. I'm not getting too deep into this.
Oh my God.
Vincent Martin for 12 months. Thanks so much for being 1 year free will seeker. Says, not
Thank you. You can applaud now, chat. Not that anyone's watching. Thanks, guys, for coming.
not saying that this is the Barbie movie's intent, death of the author and all, but look up the theater of the absurd. Theater of the absurd is a post-World War II designation, in particular for plays of absurdist fiction, written by primarily European playwrights, is a term for the style of theater the play represents. The play focuses largely on.
I think the actual Barbie movie, when I went and saw it afterwards, they bring up the idea of existentialism. I'm probably butchering that word like I butcher most words. But yes, this definitely does seem to follow the pattern of the theater of absurd, which probably not many people are familiar with it. So I don't blame them. And they're probably not very popular. They're really hard to pull off. And frankly, they come from a sort of leftist perspective. So, of course, anti-commies who definitely would not like it. It's not full bore. It was like the baby's first little philosophy communism, not the Stalin communism, but a lot of good stuff came out of Russia, like Chekhov as a playwright, Chekhov's gun. I mean, he went into hyper realism, Chekhov, when plays before were more like pretty much absurdism. It wasn't quite, it was anti-realism. And Chekhov was one of the people who promoted it. Like, there's a lot of actors, if you see the old acting, it comes off really weird. It's probably comes from getting a lot of theater people in the scene to talk about these issues here. But yeah, the theater of absurd or absurdist film. Wes Anderson probably follows this principle to a certain amount. You can even see this in a lot of some of, oh God, 2001, Doctor Strange Love, or How I Learned to Love War, blah, blah, blah. How am I forgetting the dude's name right now? But The Shining, I know it's all his movies. I'm just dropping his name. That had a certain element of, well, there was a certain element of that. Doctor Strangelove was definitely an absurdist piece here.
Ideas of existentialism and express what happens when human existence lacks meaning or purpose and communication breaks down. The structure of the play is typically a round shape. The finishing point the same as the starting.
I continue on because Stitch just reads the Wikipedia, obviously. That's why I highlight it. Attacks the comfortable certainties of religion or political orthodoxy. Now, yeah, it does definitely play with the idea of the matriarchy and the patriarchy. Aims to shock its audience out of complacence and brings it to face, the hard, harsh facts of human situation as these writers see it. So if it's any feminist undertones is coming because Greta, although it was sort of a mosh pit of ideas that sort of went out there, a lot of this is coming probably from Greta. And you study, I did a lot of reading of some of her writing advice and other things like that. She writes from her perspective. So her husband or partner, I think is the term she uses both in life and in writing, was part of this. And he did Life Aquatic with Steve Zuda or something. Always forget that name. A sort of very close relationship with Wes Anderson. If you've seen Wes Anderson, if you don't like Wes Anderson, it's probably going to taint your view of this sort of writing style here. Not that Wes Anderson goes, I don't know. I haven't done a critical analysis of Wes Anderson, but he definitely has a sort of absurdist mindset. I think he's a little bit more traditional in storytelling, but there is a bit of absurdity. Have to do a breakdown of some of his movies to really tell what his style is. And I'm sure he doesn't make it very apparent from my memory of any of his movies.
Point. Logical construction argument give way to rational and logical speech, and to the ultimate conclusion, silence. Interesting.
Dude, straight up, Barbie is an allegory for Albert Camus. The writings of Albert Camus.
This is why I told him base Albert Camus. Comment. Yes. One of the people known, cited as founder of freaking absurdism. Theater of the absurd. The sort of myth of Sisyphus. A lot of weird stuff, but you can see German invaded forces, joined the French resistance and fought against those darn Nazis. And yeah, Nazi fighting is awesome. Okay, but he was part of the French, so politically active. The left that he was part of the left that opposed Joseph Stalin in the Soviet Union. I don't like the fact he's a moralist, but I definitely like anarcho. Well, not anarcho. I like, in theory, I'm more of a minimalist because you need rules. It's just too many rules. But let me not get into my politics. But you can see he definitely was the left. And this is where he sort of went. Shows to be existentialist. And that line is dropped at least twice in the Barbie movie. I think it was signaling that it was trying to be a absurdist piece and trying to hit the themes. I would have to rewatch it with a fine-tooth comb to actually sort of get into it. And there is definitely another element in it that the end of this video is going to highlight completely. But let's see sort of Stitch being wrong in a couple minutes.
Dude, fucking Stitch is like, this movie where the fucking governmental conflict is resolved with the dance contest doesn't take its fucking existential theme seriously enough. It doesn't spend enough time in the dating bar to fucking resolve Barbie's character conflict. And chat's like, oh, yes, Stitch.
This is the problem. Like, a Monty Python is a wacky movie. Okay, you're like, that like one scene where
remember, just a wacky movie, no themes, no nothing. Monty Python, just a wacky movie.
The king is like, Arthur comes over and he's talking to the peasants and he's like, I'm your king. And they're like, I didn't vote for you.
And this is where I think Doomer's wrong in this thing also. I'm saying the meaning. I think he's reading into it being sort of left-leaning. I must be more centrist than Doomer because I'm not getting any of it. I can see the accidental messaging that these two boys below got from it. And I understand Doomer. I think they're more correct, but they're still incorrect in my opinion because the feminist aspects comes from Greta and of course the star of the show who gave it over to Greta to write and direct.
And they kind of do this like whole side quest about like the politics of the monarchy and how it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Like that's played completely as a joke. That has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It's obvious that it's a joke. There's no like grander theme. Maybe there is. I've never tried to analyze Monty Python.
Yeah, it's a throwaway. Good point.
It didn't seem to me that there were any like grander themes in Monty Python.
Since the very first episodes of Monty Python's Flying Circus first aired on British TV back in 1969, a central pillar of their humour was how they drew attention to the intellectual shortcomings of the television medium itself. Bizarre editing, disjointed narratives.
Hola, Lucy. I'm sure you came in the good part where I'm finally done. Well, not completely done with the Stitch and Adam clips, but I added some context to the special edit to really disprove Stitch here. He's saying he doesn't see any of the themes. I'll probably have to link this video down below. I didn't want to spoil the surprise, and I threw this together rather quickly today. But yes, the themes, I just touch upon it in this. There's much more, but I think the few minutes of this particular anti-movie, it's like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the anti-movie. You could say the same almost for Barbie in a lot of ways.
Inappropriate music, bad special effects, fake sets. Monty Python took all of these common flaws of television content, which often go unnoticed by the viewer, and they exaggerated those flaws so that the audience can't miss them. This was arguably an intellectual effort to educate audiences, to make them more aware of how false and misleading much of their consumed television reality.
I would have to disagree with this. Intellectual for the Monty Python crew, I think, is too much credit. Pseudo-intellectual comedy-wise, I would give it more of a tone. But you know what? I'm being too critical. I think this video was really good. Monty Python, the anti-movie.
He actually is. There are lots of examples of their television work that served as precursors to their first movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But one that stands out for me is their comedy version of an Icelandic myth called Njál's Saga. In the Python version, the protagonist is supposed to be on an adventure in 1126 in Iceland, but finds himself blatantly in the English filming location of Malden in the 1970s. And his adventure is frequently interrupted by product placement type advertisements asking for business investment in Malden. The time displacement element, bouncing back and forth between the past and present, is also a comedic feature in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
And does that seem anywhat similar to the Barbie movie? I mean, yes, the ending tries to go for that whole stick, but frankly, I thought Ruth, especially, I really think the Barbie movie should have done by the rules of three for a lot of things, like them getting arrested by the police. They brought up in that debate or the conversation is, why did Barbie get arrested for punching the guy who slapped her ass? A better question is, why was Ken getting arrested? He didn't do anything as far as the audience was concerned. I mean, it's just sort of a hyper stereotypical, which is an element of the theater of the absurd, stereotypical characters. Why Stitch sees it as the real world, the stereotypical characterization of all the people in the real world sort of strikes me as, yes, this is meant to look like the real world, but it isn't the real world. The characterization, the sort of sexism, why is everyone looking at them? And later on in the Barbie movie, for anyone who hasn't seen it, the group of suited people. Sorry, there's going to be some spoilers for this, people. There's a whole bunch of suited executives just on the boardwalk, and they don't get half the looks that Barbie and Ken on in their very bright outfits get in the beginning of the film. So I really disagree with the idea that the real world, like even Stitch brought up in the debate, I didn't include it, that there was this place with all this manliness that just wowed Ken when he went in. American flags, America, fuck yeah. Probably more like men, fuck yeah, in that case. But still, it really struck me as an element that really indicated, but I think they could have made it stronger by going by the rules of 3.
What Monty Python was trying to say about society as a whole, so that when the end of the movie is basically cucked, or I guess just say cock blocked, by the police coming in and stopping the movie from finishing in the big climax, that's part of the joke, and it doesn't really like have anything to do with the themes of the movie, because there really aren't any themes in the movie. It's just a funny, wacky movie. Barbie clearly does have themes and messages it's trying to say about things.
Okay, it doesn't.
Yeah, and I think you're getting them wrong. And the fact that you're getting Monty Python wrong also, I'm pretty sure he's getting Monty Python wrong. So this comparison, I think I saw Andrew talk about undercover brother in a certain Discord server. And you know what? I would have to rewatch it. That I don't know how that would apply here, but yes, Barbie movie definitely seems more Monty Python-ish, and I think the sort of Malden thing, the precursor to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, with they were making the Nordic guy going from the past to the future and coming back again, and product placement, all those elements are in the Barbie movie. Was that coincidental or was that intentional? Because I'll have a small clip of Greta talking later, and you'll see how she wanted to construct the Barbie movie, and it's a bit odd.
Need to be fucking 1-to-1 to make the point about the tone of the movie obviously being satirical and silly. And beyond
that's not my point.
there are very, very consistent references throughout Holy Grail about like the injustices of the feudal system. Like that's not just one time. I mean, it's sprinkled all throughout the movie.
Yeah, and I think those were ultimately meaningless. I mean, they had meaning behind the perspective of the characters that they were writing for, just like Barbie was dealing with a mother, junior SJW, and the anti-feminism of Barbie as a whole. I think Ken really got screwed in several different ways in this, worse than people think.
I mean, very lightly.
Well,
I don't think Monty
And not by the other Kens. Okay, I deny that perspective.
Python's trying to make statements about like monarchy in the modern era when no one's really.
It's not nearly as
most people weren't trying to advocate to return back to like feudalism or something.
No, it's a very different.
Andrew, I think those two are a good pair. Examine, but I could be wrong. Yeah, sorry, I'm not quite getting what you're saying. Undercover brother and something else, or Monty Python. Are you talking about my example? I'm guessing Monty Python and the Barbie movie. I think they're a good match, and I think Monty Python definitely pulled it off much better. But only time will tell, and maybe really don't know. I think they're a better comparison between Monty Python, and Stitch just sort of dismisses it, which I find disappointing, especially since he's like, I've never done a analysis of it, and just offhand. I mean, he's not perfect. I like him better out of the pairing, but they still have their relevance, and he even shows it here. Yeah, I want my liberalism.
Different story structure. Right. It's not the same thing, but it's a very similar tone.
Oh, really?
Monty, to me, Holy Grail was kind of like Airplane. It's just a silly, goofy parody.
You think so, Andrew? Undercover Brother? I would have to rewatch Undercover Brother to get a feel, but I really think it more Monty Python. Kent, you could be right. Okay. I'll have to watch it. Maybe we could do that sometime. Oh, if we can get a copy of Barbie that won't get us struck. Well, maybe privately and just talk about it. Maybe.
Movie This doesn't really have a deeper message about anything. Where Barbie clearly does have deeper messages about that.
Citation needed,
which
sir.
you agree? Well, no, what you agree with, because you were saying that the message was about a girl becoming a woman.
Well, that's not a super deep message.
Yeah, I think Doomer's wrong here. I mean, I think it's more complex. I think it's more the sort of, I could be completely wrong about this, but I think the sort of line in the beginning where you have the see-through mirror, that sort of joke line would look even better. I forget the exact line, but in the very beginning, I think the mirror is a certain element. Sitch brings up the sort of, he does it jokingly about the older woman. I think that was the first sign that sort of the Chekhov gun that was left for people to sit on. Do I believe the movie accomplished sort of that sort of meaning throughout its symbology very well? No, but it is there. It's just a little bit weak. Yeah, see, you're kidding me. Monty Python absolutely has themes. I agree with whoever that is. Ken did nothing wrong. Yeah, agree. Ken did nothing wrong.
It's like a very typical tacked on.
Well, I mean,
thing
they
to give the
felt
movie a hard
the
thing
need to have like a
Yeah.
10-minute speech where
Nice.
Barbie's mom imparts motherhood to her at the end of the movie. So they took that seriously.
I mean, it's not serious in the sense that it undermines the tone of the rest of the film.
Like, because we were saying, because I remember you saying something like, yeah, like, there's a reason that everyone, when they like certain moments in movies, they all like the same moments or they find the same jokes funny. That's like, obviously there's a level of objectiveness to storytelling.
Oh,
God.
God.
Good.
Yes, understanding characters' motivations is one of those levels.
If you're to ask me, why do I think people will I think this movie will be very successful, and I do think it'll be very popular. Ben Shapiro said he thought it was going to like drop off the first week. I don't think that's true at all. I think the primary reason this movie.
Yeah, I don't know why I kept in all this. I should have cut it sooner, but context. I thought there might be something more value. But let's just listen to the wonderful. It's going to be over soon, before you know it. And hi, JP Mexican here. He was just watching this video. It's quite a debate. And I disagree with both sides, but I would agree more with Doomer in this side. That's weird considering my critical nature, but I had issues with his Chappelle video and also sort of his other video, Django Unchained, where he had more of a solid viewing of this. But I could have been wrong in that instance, to be fair.
People do very well is for two reasons. One, all the fucking horrible woke feminist pandering will appeal to a lot of people, number one. But number two, this movie is...
See, I don't think it's feminist woke pandering. And he's saying it's not even woke, so it seems a little bit weird. But people will see it as feminist woke pandering.
Wait, what happened to...
Let him finish.
Filled to the brim with, in my opinion, undeserved emotional moments between mothers and daughters. That when the mothers take their daughters to see this movie, they'll hug their daughter close and cry, and they'll feel like they felt something and learned something. Okay. Now, from my perspective, I felt that those moments were undeserved, but a lot of people could still just see the scene play out before them and still feel that emotion. We're not wrong for that. That's what will happen, and I think that's why people like the movie.
He never explains why he feels it's undeserved. I mean, I can see his perspective here, so I'll respect his opinion here. But I think he's overestimating his sort of... He's even saying, I think he doesn't pull out the, in my opinion, very much. So him pulling it out here, he's just trying to lay it out as he sees it, as a viewer, not as a critic, in my personal opinion. As a critic. Educated opinion as a critic. Sadly, obviously, Sitch does not have as much background. He has me beat on film history mostly. I was surprised when he did the Illuminati video and he went over the film noir segment and bringing up facts that I'd never heard of. But you know what? Let's not burst his bubble too much. Obviously, I think he's off here.
And because it's silly and fun. Okay.
I agree. Yeah.
So.
I recommended it for those reasons, even though I think the plot was fucking, had huge plot holes and shit motivations and really missed the mark on what it could have been.
So Azuma conceives of the otaku as a postmodern consumer, one which seeks to consume and classify characters from anime, manga, and visual novels according to their traits by anonymously creating databases that catalog, store, and display their results.
Okay, shit. I'm gonna have to actually slow this down. He's talking too much. So, prefaces for this. This is not going to make much sense until I get into the next bit. I think this is a added element here that definitely factors into the success, the building of the Barbie movie. This whole section is sort of just a primer because I'm too lazy to really explain all this, and this video does it in a very short, concise time. Otakus, and it's not strictly just about Japanese, Eastern otakus. This same logic applies to Western consumers of media geeks. He compares it to Trekkies very soon.
The otaku is a postmodern consumer, one which seeks to consume and classify characters from anime, manga, and visual novels according to their traits by anonymously creating databases that catalog, store, and display their results. This database that Azuma talks about doesn't refer to any specific database online. Azuma is referring to a non-hierarchical collection of various media elements that define a family relation amongst the media we consume.
Yeah, the language of this video is very dense. So for people watching now, basically saying certain elements get collected. This is how this idea works. People collect elements to sort of piece together an otaku media. And they sort of reassemble them, sort of like Voltron or Power Rangers. You know, it is the West. But this trend, I definitely is seeing its effect in many ways. I don't know if I'm seeing it correctly or not, but there is a lot to be valued in this particular book, I think. I really need to actually read. He has the PDF on this. I'll link this video in the description after I'm done because I think this is an excellent resource and something that Western critics who are serious about criticism should actually go through. He says in a certain section there's several wild ideas, theories in here, but sometimes you hit or miss, you pick and choose and see what works. And for the Barbie movie, I think this works very well in trying to judge it as a piece of medium.
Instead of seeing otaku as uniquely Japanese, Azuma sees the rise of otaku culture as marking a new global trend in consumption. He mentions Trekkies as a Western example. The reason for why he links these
Red Letter Media, very good clip there. But yes, a global idea. Trekkies being an example of that. I'm sure Star Wars fans also would fall under this. Probably all the, as Doomer would say, cape shit would fall under this sort of otaku framework. And definitely, if you're going to criticize and try to judge these Marvel movies, I think this is a perspective you need to take in. Maybe not to criticize it, to understand some of the decisions and where they even go wrong in them here.
features to postmodernity is for two reasons. The first is the omnipresence of simulacra, and the second, the dysfunctionality of a grand narrative.
Yep. Dysfunction of a grand narrative, something that definitely Barbie suffers from. You have the sort of first trouble. Why am I saying travel? They travel after the trouble to see the girl, and there's a lot of nonsense. So that sort of gets fixed. Well, not completely. The mother joins Barbie with his daughter and goes to, I'm sure that helps her point of view of not being so depressed, why she's at least in Barbie land. And then there's the patriarchy becomes the next sort of a problem they have to deal with. And at the very end, that actually follows the rules. The patriarchy gets resolved, and Barbie realizes she can't be here. She's not happy in Barbie land. She can't be Barbie and Ken anymore, but she doesn't know what to do about it because she's a doll. She's still like a newborn, still learning about this world, but she's sort of as clueless as the mother. And even though the mother had this grand speech, Hola, Anna waifu, I wouldn't stay for too. Good to see you here. Okay, my typical boring streams. I hope you can find some information in this, even though most of it's going to be cringe from your perspective, I'm sure. So, grand narrative. Barbie, the movie, does not have a great grand narrative. It has a series of narratives that sort of gets resolved rather happenstancely. I'll agree. The box thing makes absolutely no sense. Except for a box. She just feels weirded out. I don't know. There is some argument why she feels weird at being put in a box by a whole bunch of men surrounding her. You know, maybe the mother's experiences is still of stress was affecting her. A little bit of a weakness, but I see it as a pass. I wouldn't want to be put in a box.
Jacques Tati,
Nobody puts baby in a box.
and also Playtime Jacques Tati, which
I
is
was
not
gonna
on
bring
this
up
list.
Playtime,
Playtime,
yes.
obviously Playtime is in. But Jacques Tati also, it's the the king of the slow joke. The way those movies unfold are just so.
Okay. Some context here will be probably needed. I pulled this just singular event. I probably shouldn't have pulled the whole thing. This is coming from the official Barbie watch list, and it will highlight this is at the very end after she went through like 20 movies that she inspired her with, both sort of directing. So this is why it had the sort of otaku database, because this movie does, from how she describes it, it's definitely a collection of ideas from other movies, different older techniques. And I think the database does get a factor in here. How much of a factor, that's what I can't determine right away.
Perfect. And I always thought of Mattel as existing slightly in Jacques Tati world.
Yeah, and those practical sets too in his
Incredible.
films. Oh my
Amazing. Splash is another movie that is utterly charming and works emotionally, even though it's so high concept and it's down to, Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks are so great.
I'm gonna have to speed this up. It's really should have speeded up in that, but I knew. But basically, they're just movie geeking out here, talking about the elements she wanted to put in the movie.
It's a movie,
Or-
I guess a literal. I'm sure the tagline was "fish out of water," but it felt like a kind of crossing worlds movie that felt like it's one I've loved since I was a kid too. So
it fit into
that
her
was
little
just a touch
database.
base with what made that
The
work. And then-
crossing of worlds, star-crossed lovers. I don't think she really put Romeo and Juliet. You can see the little, a lot of classics that I haven't seen, but of course I've seen Splash. It's definitely a good one. Not the first one she did, a French thing, but those filmmakers love their French.
Saturday Night Fever, I always had a sense of, wanting this to be like a movie with just an amazing soundtrack. And I thought Saturday Night Fever obviously has this incredible soundtrack for the Bee Gees. And I had watched, there's a documentary about the Bee Gees, and I've seen it. And I was so touched by the Bee Gees. And I thought Barbie seemed so disco to me, actually, in her heart, because Barbie's sort of, and I will say this about disco as a lover of disco, Barbie and disco, a little bit dorky.
Yeah. Don't you think the grand narrative was Barbie stand-in and for the normie white woman who's naive and recognize her privilege, faces sexism, learns feminism, and destroys the false consciousness? Good theory. Good theory. I don't know if I can get behind it. Definitely one way you can look at it. And she definitely, the only out of scene Stitch brings up is the sort of weird thing that I haven't even seen the clip for. So in all these interviews, all my research, she does not talk about this, but it's clear here she is geeking out about all these movies in. Maybe it's Margot Robbie that really wanted to play up the marketing for the feminists and why you got that quote. Because it's clear Greta, you look at her film past, she's extremely family oriented. So is her partner, both in writing and life, as she put it. I guess husband, it does not work out very well. Probably too old-fashioned of a term for her.
In the best way. It had that quality. And Saturday Night Fever was like a kind of a movie that was driven by music, but not a musical. And I guess we're half of a musical.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't think dorky should be derogative. I agree.
No, I know. I always think of Margot saying, yay, space.
Yeah.
And I think like that, when she did that, I was like, that's Barbie. Barbie is yay, space.
Yeah.
She also, according to her writing technique, she writes to a certain point. I also saw a Quentin Tarantino talk about this and going through these videos on writing, screenwriting, getting to a certain point in the film and letting the characters speak to it. And for a complex matter like this, I'm sure there's a lot of collaboration between how the script pulls off. And I think that really does disjoint this. I mean, say what you want. Stanley Kubrick. That's who I was trying to think of earlier. Stanley Kubrick, merciless director known for being harsh as all hell. That was a difference. He had a vision and he wanted to pull it off exactly how he wanted to. There's other directors in the field who does that, but it does not seem like Greta does that. She goes with the more collaborative effort from everything I've read and seen on her.
Yay. Did you get through all of them?
Yeah, I did. I touched on all of them except for The Godfather, and we all know why The Godfather's in there.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
it's the triumph of Robert Evans and Coppola's aesthetic genius.
Yes, we did it.
We did
We
it!
did it. I can't
believe
deny.
it.
Thank you,
I
Greta.
can't believe it. Thank you.
Two things that sound pretty complicated will make more sense when we look at a show like Digikarat. Digikarat's main character, Digicore, appeared around 1997 to 1998, originally as a mascot for
Okay, I hope I don't have to highlight this for this stream. Why I'm playing this again, because it does factor. Barbie was a product. Yes, there has been media made on them, but I think Greta really went from sort of just Barbie across the ages to come to her sort of vision now. I don't think she went with one grand narrative or theme for Barbie. Barbie to Greta, they stated in the beginning very clearly Barbie could be anything. And you focus on just stereotypical Barbie.
or an anime and gaming store, and at this point, there existed no narratives or stories behind the mascot at this time. As the character gained attention, anime, novels, and games with the character were produced. Because of this process, the narrative world around the character can be formed anonymously and collectively. For example, Usada Hiraku and Petit Karat are characters associated with Digicore, but were released only in 1999. On top of this, Petit Karat's name was also decided by a fan poll. Whilst Digicore is now known to be cocky and carefree, these character traits did not exist in her originally and were added in the anime version as a form of self-parody. Digikarat's development was not managed by any particular author or production company, but instead was an assemblage of various corporate ad campaigns. It doesn't make much sense to ask what the original Digikarat is, who the author is, or what kind of message is implied. The entire project is an assemblage of various productions. Digikarat flipped the normal order in which the story of a work is followed by its character.
And I think Greta sort of followed this process in hers. The otaku method of creating a film with a very collaborative team from the way she describes it. She could be death of the author, of course, is completely acceptable. You don't have to associate. You can. Some of these people who hate J.K. Rowling can disassociate her in her mind. She tried to throw some feminist leaning into like, oh, Gandalf's gay. Not Gandalf. Actor was. Dumbledore was gay and the snake was an Asian woman, all that stuff. Binary. Yeah, all that. She can't say that. Death of the author in that case, most cases. She was just trying to push that. And no, people don't want to accept that, but that's a different story altogether.
Character merchandise. Instead, Digikarat's narrative is a subordinate element within the whole media mix strategy. Projects such as the anime or novel, usually seen as independent works, are merely related products on the same level as character mugs, figurines, or keychains. The narrative is a surplus item, added to the settings and illustrations that surround the series. But this idea of a database also extends to the production of characters in their visual design and their personalities. When we look at Digicore,
Yeah, you don't. There's definitely something missing from that Barbie. All the Barbies were uniform. They had a little bit of this element, but I don't think they played into it too well with some of the stereotyping. They could have actually learned a little bit more from something like this to give some of the characters a little bit more diversity. Don't they all? Doesn't Hollywood love diversity? But you're not going to find a lot of it in here. And at least the Barbie movie. And you take these superficial characteristics and expand them outwards, and it sort of works.
we can see are composed of various elements favored by otaku.
To a certain extent for the genre, of course. But of course, you have the absurdism where stereotypical character traits is the norm. And so I'm thinking the Barbie movie is definitely attempt at absurdism with a little bit of the sort of database mentality we have in this generation, a postmodern global idea among geeks. And definitely from what I've been hearing, a lot of people have been like taking their wife and having their wife sort of like geek out on them about, oh, that Barbie's from that. And, sort of a geek experience all around, sort of the communal thing. And Barbie's definitely a postmodern movie made for postmodern audience. Probably why it's resonating so well and doing so poorly for those who want the grand narrative. Just so many ways that the Barbie movie and how it's constructed just isn't gonna be very good at the grand narrative. And it's fine if you want that in a story and you don't like it because it doesn't give you that. But it has other elements that will make it definitely great to a certain segment of people, both with your absurdism. There's a certain sort of, it's a very niche art, and you have to be sort of pretentious and a prick to like it. There's very few absurdist comedies, issues like that I could really get into, and there's some just downright weird ones,
which Azuma calls moe elements. Each moe element has its own origins and backgrounds developed in order to stimulate the interest of consumers. These moe features are not a simple fetish object, rather a property emerged through market principles. Most moe elements are visual, but they can also manifest as a particular way of speaking, setting, character arcs, and so on. Digicorp, for instance, has antennae-like hair, a maid costume, cat ears, and a collection of various other moe features, as if to downplay the authorship of the designer as much as possible.
Yeah, and all the Barbies have their accessories. There's the whole sort of little Easter egg things that sort of highlight that. I'll be getting into that next, and maybe I'll even be going into Bob's and Dane's sort of horrible take on it. So I want to look at it, but I'm saving that for last. Everyone's going to be gone, so you won't experience it. So I'll let you know before I dive into Bob and Dane's sort of take on that.
Otaku already have an intuitive knowledge of this, which is why Boru-type search engines exist to catalog art by their moe elements. The characters consumed, they are broken down into elements, categorized, and registered into a database. If there is no appropriate classification, a new element or category will be created. In this sense, the originality of an original character can only exist as a simulacrum, or a copy without an original. There's a way I hear people naively calling anime and manga incestuous because the visual design of characters seems to endlessly reiterate inside the otaku database. In the example of Digicorp, we should grant the show's characters.
Yeah, this divides on several different sections from actually what I'm talking about, but I think the general principle can be applied to the Barbie movie. I'm wondering if it can be found other places. Again, in a lot of the geek cultures, I'm sure this philosophy has been predicated here. Yeah, sorry. I suggest you leave before I get to that section. I'm trying to delay that, but I almost thought they had it, but then Bob went into this whole little slideshow on Barbie, and I'm like, oh God, I thought maybe you would have a good take for once. But even here, where I don't agree with a lot of these rightoids, they still miss the mark. So freaking illiterate when it comes to media and pushing so many politics.
They are not simply consuming an independent work, nor are they consuming characters and settings by themselves. Rather, otaku are consuming the database of otaku culture and participating in a media mix that is non-hierarchical. It's worth noting here that Azuma isn't trying to attack otaku. His ultimate aim is to elevate them so people can properly understand and research their media. Azuma has a lot of appreciation for otaku works, even if this description may seem quite negative on the surface.
Yes, I really like this idea of the database. As he said, there's probably a lot of ideas out there, but you gotta throw a lot of ideas and see what's works. So I like wild speculation on media theory. Not everything's going to stick. It's the evolution of trying to determine how new art works. I might be a bit of a geek on media analysis and trying to get a sort of broad scope across the board and trying to figure it out. But, everyone's got their own sort of interest, and this is sort of mine.
So summing up, Azuma argues that in otaku culture, each individual work appears on the surface to be understood as an expression of a database-like depth in two ways. In one way, the narrative-based work is a subordinate element of a media-mixed strategy without coherent order. In another way, each character is an output of a database of moe features accumulated within the whole of otaku culture. By consuming each individual work and merchandise, the otaku consumes the...
Yeah, so Barbie, I'm going to end this now. It's pretty much at the end. I always clip too long with these sort of edits, get a little bit lazy with it. But yeah, you got the sort of features of Barbie, which are very prominent in the Barbie movie. They determine a lot. A lot of the character stereotypes are abstracted from it, and then they try to break away from it. There are some animes that do the same with these sort of elements, like probably one of my favorite, the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. They have a lot of these archetypical characters and really play with them. Like he even goes into a little bit of Evangelion. So this is why that's such a contentious movie. I don't think his theory is completely correct on that, but let's move on to definitely an element I wanted to go into. Was going to put into that edit, but
Customers
and
expect
of
easier
course,
onboarding.
ad. Hate you ads. You go silent, and I will amuse the people who are around and watching this in the future. So, oh yeah, the horrible flat feet.
This idea of going from pointed feet to flat feet, I just think is important symbolism for the character. As even though flat feet would be more comfortable, a more grounded pose, it's just still awkward and disorienting.
That commentary is just cringe.
So she must visit Weird Barbie, Kate McKinnon, the Barbie who's been played with too much so that her face has been colored on and her hair has been cut awkwardly, and she's always doing the splits. Actually, in the quick flashback, we see the girl who did this to her, and in this playboard, you can see the name on the pole.
Gloria. Apparently that's the mother's name. I'm horrible with names, saying them or remembering them. So I consider her the mother character.
Gloria. Gloria. This is Gloria. This is America Ferrera as a child. The same girl who played with stereotypical Barbie as an adult is the one who made Weird Barbie weird. She is really the focal dreamer of the story that the Barbies of Barbie Land live inside the imagination of. Also, Weird Barbie has a potty pup that drops little plastic poops.
That's actually gonna make it worse that all this is part of the mother's dream. Barbie Land is all just the assistant of Mattel. I don't know if that's intentional. Maybe that's just another little absurdist little thing that sort of ruins it for me. And Andrew, welcome. You are here. You've learned. There's so much I learned, but all my streams are all experimental myself. I try to work my way through it. Sometimes having guests, sometimes not. If anyone wants to jump in and just talk about it, I'm going to be doing, got an edit of Dane and Bob talking about this, and they missed the mark completely. Figured, yeah, I'll get to that. And sorry if you're still here. Do not watch. I'll let you know. But
like
yeah,
the one
I
from the Barbie
think
Walk
we're
and
getting
Potty
to
Pup
this
set. So Weird Barbie, whose name reminds me of the Weird Sisters, the prophetic witches of Macbeth, explains the logic of this world, or rather, doesn't explain the logic of it. She says includes no
I can see that. But
the real world to find the girl playing with her and fix what's wrong with her. That is Barbie's quest in this movie. And yes, notice how behind Barbie is Weird Barbie's world map, which is currently a disputed region claimed by China. The fifth largest continent in the song is nobody else. Eventually, in the back of the boats.
I'm sure he missed a lot in this. I just wanted to display that, and actually that little fact. White noise. And I don't know if I retreaded on the fact that I had a very, from Ruth, I got a very Mel Brooks vibe from Ruth, the ghost who has the penthouse in Mattel. Oh, very nice. Stupid little Easter egg. Okay, getting off of that. Stupid little Easter eggs, hunts. I did like that one fact out of this. There's a lot of stuff, and you go into some of the, here's the one that I did with Monty Python, and I only had a little clip of that in case you want to. Why did it not do that? Is my thing freaking out? Yeah, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I'll link this, a film analysis. I'm not going to go over it, but I believe it shows highlights some. Okay, ready for it? Yeah, I don't think I can delay it. I can go over the writing of Greta, but I don't think that's very helpful. I mean, she had some good points and some points I can disagree with, but you know, creatives, they're always going to be hard to judge. Okay, let's go into the cringe. That is a Phantom Initiative.
You sure about that? You sure about that? I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part.
And I have this set up. Probably better that way.
You're gonna get dying.
I actually like this edit.
I put the cock in my mouth.
You did.
I actually like that edit. That was a really good edit. I think Dane put that together. So bravo, Dane. I really like that edit. And it seems like they talk about absurdism in the beginning, but not really. Oh, God. Yeah, keep it.
What?
Oh, my God.
Was that absurd, or did that make sense to everybody?
I almost thought he was going to go off of the theater of the absurd, but that's really the best sort of framework to actually view Barbie from, because it fits very well into the theater of absurd. Not perfectly. This is why I wouldn't rate it as high as Doomer did. Or rate it according to Gray. I rate it slightly higher than Gray, but I'm not going to spoil that.
Y'all got what I was saying with that, right? Like, it was a very clear message. Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's absurd. It was absurd. Absurdity is the name of the game. Things are absurd. Everybody's absurd, especially anti-fandom.
With some weird shit. Like, we weren't even planning on this week, and then like this Barbenheimer shit happened. It's like, are they serious? This is what Barbenheimer showed me. Because
I mean, it comes up absurd. And I'm like, are they going to talk about the absurdity and how that's no spoiler? I don't think they do. I just skim this.
This whole thing's wild. So real quick, so like they targeted Barbie hardcore, like, and this came so last.
So you're doing a Barbie thing. You don't even talk about freaking Barbie. I was having some hope because of that beginning in the absurd talk, but no, they just immediately go with these people. And yeah, these videos, I probably wouldn't agree with them. The only one I think I watched was the Critical Drinkers video. In fact, I was thinking of doing a parody on that, but that would have just been more mocking, and we don't need more of this. And they don't even get into it. Now, if Dane or Bob had a good take on Barbie, how to interpret it properly, I think that would be, I could almost get down with this, but no, they jump straight into the anti-fandom instead of embracing a movie that supposedly they think is good. Maybe it's just about the money. I don't even know. But yeah, here is the cringe.
Last minute. The first thing I saw about it was Ben Shapiro posting on, I think that was a Facebook post, or did he do it on multiple social media?
That's probably all social media. That's the way they are.
Ben Shapiro posted a photo of himself talking about how his producers forced him to watch Barbie, and it was woke. He had to do a video on it now.
Ben Shapiro, are you
hold
on? I want to make a call to Ben Shapiro. Are you okay, man? Are you an indentured servant? Do you blink twice if you're being held against your will? Like,
it's hyperbolic. Okay, dude. Oh God. Type 1 in the chat if you find that funny. No, don't do that. It'll expose me for how fraud I am.
Why would they possibly be able to make you see that? He
so
saw
your
it because
employees are making you watch something.
Right. Yeah. All narrative.
I'm
It's
not
all
sure how that
narrative
works.
bullshit. It's all narrative bullshit.
It's insane. But yeah, I had.
Yeah, I wish that title, they targeted Barbie. They didn't target Barbie. Just the movie is weird. From a traditional lens, especially from a conservative lens, most people will see these elements because they really did fuck over Ken in so many ways. And if you factor in that sort of element of everyone is living in that mother's dream, I'm guessing the father would sort of be the representation of Ken. And that sort of fucks him over when you see him twice. Again, I think the movie should have done the rule of 3 to accentuate. Ruth should have shown up 3 times. Cops should have arrested them 3 times. Rule of 3, maybe they wanted to just do the binary back and forth. But for repetition, the minimum, in my opinion, in fact, if you could have done it 4 times just to go over the rule of 3 to actually emphasize certain points here.
Go watch it, and then he destroys it for 43 minutes. Whatever. I've seen some people clowning on these videos. I want to make clear, I haven't watched any of these videos. Frankly, I don't have to. I've seen enough of these guys' content. Like, maybe you look at them and laugh, but like, I know what they're saying. Like,
it really does.
Movie.
No, you don't know what they're saying. You pretending like you know you're saying for your narrative. You knew what they were saying. Let's see if you know what you're saying about Barbie. Yeah, it was a little cringe thing. He also gets into Oppenheimer. I might go fast through that.
Yeah, we can break it down even more because the
No, you
movie.
can't.
Well, here I go over in the slideshow. So let's go next. Okay, so here's me breaking down the politics and themes of Barbie. Because I'm like, well, I've seen this movie. What makes it like man hating or feminist? The overall theme is that people should learn to accept who they are and be happy with who they are. Just be who you are, and there's nothing wrong with that.
See, it's so off the mark. It's about, they say it twice in the film, at least. Maybe they say it 3 times and follow the rule. Existential breakdown. Another thing that makes me think it has an element of the absurd. Barbie at the end does not know who she is. It does have elements of the hero's journey that is built into the theater of absurd also, the circular nation. But the way Barbie sort of breaks from that is she breaks out of Barbie land. That's where that sort of argument pops off for that. But no, not accept who they are. It's about trying to learn who you are, reinventing. Not about. And the whole speech about the mother, I completely disagree with almost everyone that that's some sort of a feminist messaging. It's more about the impossibility of trying to be a perfect woman. I think it's a good representation. I think this Barbie might be a more anti-red pill video than it is woke, because it definitely has that sort of Kens go with patriarchy and they become like the red pill men, and they'd be like alpha, but they're still little cucks in the end, like most of the red pill guys. Okay. And they're able to be led along, calls to beach off with each other. Oh, that was great. That beginning part, the beach off. And another thing that reminded me of Mel Brooks, the sort of dancing. Ruth definitely had that Mel Brooks vibe at the very end. Really wish she would have had a little bit of that in her introduction, the third wall breaking, because Ruth at the second point is talks about her life, embezzlement, blah blah blah, but says, but that's for another movie. There's not going to be another movie. Was there even another History of the World Part 2 like they promised? Who knows? Okay. I can see messaging driven. All the themes in Barbie were sometimes yes, Monty Python was truly absurd. Barbie definitely had a absurdist tone to it. I'm not going to say it accomplished it perfectly. There's definitely some critiques I can make off of that, like the rule of three and repetition and not having some other elements. Barbie postmodern, why? Oh, okay. Monty Python was probably a good reading by Nietzsche. Yeah, that's a fair reading, postmodern. That's why I brought up the sort of elements of the otaku database animals. It has some of that postmodern consumerism. That's where the consumerism comes from. There's other elements in there, but definitely it's found in the consumerism mindset that a lot of these people that Bob and Dane like to rail on, they hate those sort of people with the postmodern consumerism, and that comes from that sort of mindset.
Movie actually explores a sexist world, except it's a world where men are the second-class citizens.
Whoa.
Oh my God. What?
So that's
also I don't think Dane watched this movie. I think Tiamat was talking with him last night, and he doesn't think Dane watched this movie either.
Yeah,
one
no,
point right there. On one point right there, they could have seized that. They could have seized that and made it their own. They could have fucking been like, you know what, this Barbie, and that would have gotten them probably more clicks than anything if they would have suddenly been on the side of Barbie, right? Because like it actually is, you know, how many of these fucking incel bastards?
How fucking dumb is Dane here? No, to anyone, I don't blame the conservatives for seeing this movie like this, but this really is a Rorschach test. And I really, critical drinker, definitely, I really think he's conservative. He tries to play it neutral. Anyone who makes the video he did definitely has the more conservative mindset. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's his reading of Barbie is going to be completely off. But also, Timon, we were talking about that. The sort of starting a Barbie is definitely going to put those sort of people, even with the 2001 sort of setup, done rather well, in my opinion. That's going to put some people on edge. The sort of theme of the word choice, the narration, it's definitely going to set a horrible tone for people in our political climate. So I think it was rather tone deaf of them to do it. I don't know if that was intentional or not. From what I know of Greta, I don't. Maybe she was just trying to be funny, but I found it a little funny, but I can see how that would put a lot of people of a more right-leaning perspective completely off hating the movie from the start. And then not a good move, but good for clicks and hate watch, like Velma.
Bastards are like, men are, put down in society, men are second-class citizens kind of shit. And there it is right there in the movie. So point one.
Didn't Barbie, after Gloria's speech, say something like, "You're right, I woken up," or something? Yeah, but frankly, I don't think that the speech was more about the patriarchy sounded more like red pill men. It was a very simplistic version of the patriarchy, which I believe the red pillers sort of go by. You could have replaced it with red pill and it would have worked just as well. It would have worked even better given the attitude. Even patriarchy does not act like those assholes. They think patriarchy left. The red pill is the patriarchy to the left, to right wingers. Even if they don't want to call it the patriarchy, it's about protecting women, not exploiting them as the red pillars did and as the Kens sort of understood patriarchy. As I said, this is definitely more of an anti-red pill philosophy as is presented message wise than it is anti traditional male relationships, because showed no love. But the women were just as bad because they were all stereotypical shallow dolls, because that's what they are. And everyone who's like, we're going to go back to a monarchy, but we'll give you a little bit of power, I think they were reading too much into that. I mean, maybe that was a bad messaging, but I think it was about incremental change or parodying the real world. Definitely came off wrong, but I think people are misreading the intent of that. Or maybe I'm reading it wrong. Yeah. Definitely very anti-red pill. What they call patriarchy comes off more as red pill, because actual what leftists typically call the patriarchy is very protecting and loving of women. And you even see that in Kin's character. He wanted to be there. He was sort of designed. And I probably completely skirted over this point, but Ken, if the perspective is all the mothers, all these Barbie lands lives in the mother dream, and Ken is a representation of her husband, I feel bad for him. And sort of that line at the end, she, the the dipshit child doesn't change very much. Of course, she's still going to be still parodying those sort of lines, but she said it with a laughter. Oh, that's appropriation, Dad. And they all sort of smiled at that. I think people were like, "Oh, that's a real." I'm like, they're sort of laughing at that now. Okay, she's still same person. She's lightened up. She's still not going to change fundamentally as a person. Oh, you think the red pill again? I think the reason the patriarchy seems so much like the red pill is it's a parody of the patriarchy, just like Barbie Land is definitely a parody of actual modernity. No, not modernity, matriarchy. Because what do the women actually do? They're just play acting. I mean, the women don't actually do anything. They don't eat. They don't actually shower. It's a fantasy land. They play act all day. Okay. And I think that they cure the real world of feminism. Really out there ideas proven to be wrong in the film. And they go back to it and just want to do a parody, a mirror world of it. I mean, I respect your opinion on that. I don't agree with the red pill world is actually real. It's definitely something taken from the female perspective, which is another element of absurdism. It's very dependent on the person. It's a very personal piece, and you'll hear Greta say that in a lot of her interviews. She writes from a personal perspective, and she also has a husband who's a fairly well. See, there could be a little bit of elements that I'm not seeing coming from an outside source of the collaboration, probably more from letting more people come in and sort of make changes that affected it. But Greta on its own, she did Little Women, directed it. seems solid. I would have to watch it. I can't make that determination, but then again, there's also death of the author, so I'm not going to tell anyone just because I don't think Greta intentionally made this film to be woke or anything like that. Doesn't mean she wouldn't have made mistakes that would trick people into thinking it, or maybe other people in her collaborative effort towards it. Like Stanley Kubrick wouldn't have any of this shit in his film.
But they failed him.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it makes logical sense. So the movie, I will say that the reason why they maybe didn't want to do that is because we do see the real world. In the real world, men are seen as the ones in power. But then the Barbie Land world, obviously men are not in power because like you have all these Barbies and every Barbie has a job. Then you have Kens, and then you have like Beach Ken.
The Barbie
Kens
films
don't have jobs.
That is another good point. That no, it is not. It's Warner Brothers actually, who is in desperate fucking need for a win. So good on them, I guess. But yeah, that's not Disney. So that's another reason why they might not have seized on it. Is if you look at any one of these guys' channels and you really look and like you're familiar with
Dane for the pulling people back in, talking about the money. Warner Brothers needs the win. Again, how are these guys the actual fandom? How's Dane actual fandom? I don't see it. Everything is all about getting the dunk. Even here, where they should be celebrating, and they should be making the movie, the themes, how it's doing good, the priority over the fact that these anti-fans, as they call them, are wrong in their perspective. I even agree with them. I disagree with them. And I disagree with pretty much the people saying this is a horrible film. And I still saying their methods of going at it and even their understanding of Barbie is still very elementary.
Who owns what studios and whatnot. It becomes clear who their target almost always is.
Absolutely.
There's just a very obvious anti-Disney campaign happening with the anti-fans. It's been going on a while, but
well, to address Andrew Clark, America's lines are sus. Many third feminist lines in this movie. As I said, this is a film from the perspective of women. If people consider themselves feminists, that's going to show through in this, in their language. It's not intended to be a feminist film. It's just told from a feminist perspective. There's elements of that. And it's going to try to make them funny, but they probably won't. They probably, on a deeper reading, they're probably not as funny as they intended them to be. And some of the deeper meanings where they try to sort of diverge from the absurdism, the break in it, I like some of those strong emotional moments, and those can be in absurdist films, but they also need to be treated in a certain manner that I don't think the movie actually pulled it off very well. It pulled it off to a certain degree, but it's a good balance. I would need to go through this movie with a fine-tooth comb, but I went in with a critical mindset to sort of look at it.
And that's only partially because Disney owns everything. But like,
that's true.
Anyway,
Disney has like 40% market share or something fucking insane like that. It's stupid. And there's 5 major studios and Disney's got 40%. That's insane. And I think it's insane there's even 5 major studios. There should be more.
See, these guys definitely are freaking consumers of the highest degree. Okay, you're talking about the Barbie. Maybe you're responding to the chat thinking that's what they want to hear. Talking about Disney. Even Dane wasn't as bad as bringing back up Disney. Oh, God.
But anyways, it explores a world where men are second-class citizens. And Barbie and Ken both have to admit that they fucked up and maybe they should treat.
I disagree with their even second-class citizens. They're automaton. The Kens don't even know anything outside of this. They have an inkling. Oh, there is a weird sort of mixed messaging. The Barbies think they fix feminism, brought feminism and paradise to the real world for some strange reason, but they don't see themselves as oppressors. They just see it how it is. It's sort of the unconscious bias that the Kens, by the logic of the film, how would the Kens get like Barbie gets in the film? Does anyone own the Kens, the attachment? Another one of my problems with the film is it completely sort of, when you do a deep reading on it, it sort of really puts the Ken dolls in a weird place. They truly are automaton, just attached. And I think what Barbie did for Ken at the end might have actually been the best thing she could have done. Maybe he will become someone successful, the only independent Barbie, only independent Ken doll there. Maybe he'll get with Alan. No, who knows? I don't want to see a sequel and parody sequels on that.
Treat each other differently and better. Oh shit!
Wait, so you're saying that
propaganda right there?
The Barbie world is women are the superior, the oppressors kind of thing, and then in the real world, it is what it is in the real world, and so that means that there's a balanced message in the movie.
Yeah,
that like people should just respect each other based on respecting. Weird.
Oh God, you're even getting that wrong. No, it's not a balance unless you're considering two different extremes. That's Dane's obviously idea of balance. The balance between the two different extremes. You never get a balance. The movie does not support a balance. So yeah, Dane clearly didn't watch it. And Hobbs just agreeing. Such a fucking muppet.
Sounds like fucking propaganda to me.
It does, yeah. It is entirely woke propaganda. The idea that men and women should be treated equally, I don't know why.
Who's gonna make my sandwiches?
Man-hating movie. Yeah.
Who's gonna make my sandwiches? Damn it.
But
this is also what I hate. They're using comedy in here, and when they miss the mark, okay, I try to add comedy, especially talking videos, but this comedy just seems like a cope.
But yeah, no, obvious. If you're fine with people being treated equally, the politics of Barbie really shouldn't affect you. It's fine.
But Barbie is not about people getting treated. Okay, they just keep repeating this. I'm gonna pass it.
But here's Oppenheimer on the other hand. They pretty much ignored Oppenheimer, and a couple of them gave good reviews. The Geeks and Gamers one I wasn't sure about, so I had to watch a bit of it. And yeah, they gave it a good review.
Wait, you watched the whole thing and they didn't say anything about some of the elements of the real life character?
I didn't watch the whole thing. I just watched enough, and they're calling it Christopher Nolan's best movie.
Wow.
Outside of Dark Knight. However, Oppenheimer is super political. It doesn't fucking hide it. It talks about left-wing politics and right-wing politics. It is in your face with it.
So yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but maybe even better is I listened to a 3 or 4 part podcast about the.
Even better, I listened to a podcast. Yes, I haven't actually watched Oppenheimer, but it's okay. Do I even need to explain this? It's not political if the character was sort of embroiled in all the things Oppenheimer. He was married to he had associates with communists of the time. He got put on the watch list because of all his associates. He was academic. Even back then, it was more common for academics to be part of the leftists. But yeah, a balanced message. Yeah, obviously. Or it's just Daneland. I don't know about second class. Yeah. That really just freaks me out, the whole thing there. Yeah. The thing with Ken's actually, I find the messaging with Ken a deeper rabbit hole that's probably more pragmatic than any feminist messaging, in my opinion. Yeah, quality is not the theme of Barbie. It's not. I'm not going to say that. And these brainlets saying it is just stupid. And Oppenheimer saying it's politically charged just because it's a documentary about this guy who's
creation of the atomic bomb and Oppenheimer and stuff like that. So I know that and I've looked to see make sure that they do touch on this stuff in the movie. Had some earrings and whatnot. And yeah, it's about a literal basically a communist, a guy who was married to one and had lots of friends that were communists and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Oppenheimer did not take a stance for it. He wanted to be. He was a sympathizer to the communists. Given what I know about it, he's probably wanted to remain objective as a scientist. Supposedly, he was actually into Hindu mysticism. Really fun fact about Oppenheimer. Supposedly he was really into Hindu mysticism. But supposedly colleagues talked about it and thought he was just a little fat, little exoticness. It's almost as people are sensitive to perceiving political subversion messaging versus open world. Yeah, I think that is a problem. Everyone's seen hidden messaging in Barbie. and why it's definitely in there, but I think that mainly comes from the type of film it is, and it's told from someone who grew up in the age of third wave feminism pushing through. It's told from that sort of perspective, and the guys get very little thought. I don't think it's too bad just getting too deep into the Kens. They treat it as a joke. They treat the Barbies and feminism as a joke also, but it's just a
exactly. And the movie
weird
brings that up
thing
a
there.
lot.
And I'm not a communist. I don't know if Bob is. I don't think so. You're not some
No.
pink communist.
Dane trying to hide his power level. He definitely has all the earmarkings of a communist. I believe Bob isn't a communist. He went against the tanky Kavanaughs with his little Vietnam tanky shit. But Dane, no, you're a Vosh fan, too hardcore. Even though Vosh says he hates tankies, if it was politically viable, he would support the tankies, Dane, and so would you.
But like, still, like that's the kind of shit that they. I mean, you think they would just like seize on that? So that's another point that they didn't seize on that they would have in some other instance. I think you know what I mean. Like,
I haven't
if
seen
it.
it.
I mean, look
but...
at Ant-Man, Quantumania. There was one fucking line in it about anti-socialism or whatever the hell. It was like a joke that Hank Pym made, and you know,
they went all in on that.
They were calling him Antifa Man and the commie mania and shit like that. It's like what?
Yeah.
Who did that? Let me not do the. Please cite your source. It's funny, but it's stupid to do that to people on the screen.
Yeah. Oppenheimer is way more political than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
What?
What do I know? But anyways, like diving into this, like in this movie, we have Oppenheimer, who is definitely left-wing avatar. He's brought to be left-wing many times. He's flawed. He definitely has his flaws, but overall, he's just trying to do what he thinks is best. And one thing the movie does do is when we see the world from his point of view, it's in color. On the other hand, we have Louis Strauss, who is the right-wing guy who's going after Oppenheimer.
Robert Downey Jr. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually thought it was Stanley Tucci when I first saw the picture, but no, it's Robert Downey Jr. All the actors here do a great job, by the way. By the way, both Oppenheimer and Barbie, fantastic movies. You should check them both out.
Yeah, you're right.
They're very different, but they're fantastic.
Look, I mean, other than the fact that, by the way, and I think we should probably, I'm trying to remember saying this at the top of every stream. We stand with the writers and the actors and they're striking. And without any of those people and the work that they do, we wouldn't be able to do this. So it's fucking silly to even,
And fucking blew up the box office. It's insane.
A couple of comments that I wanted to address here. This is silly. I don't even understand what that means. I mean, other than the fact that they are as loosely as possible based on a true story. Although I'm pretty sure Oppenheimer sticks a little bit more to historical record.
Okay, I'm glad about that. They at least don't go that far. Sound of Freedom vibes from Oppenheimer. At least they push back on that. That's actually good to see. Gary said. Gary. Mania. Was he serious about it? Who knows? I didn't actually watch that. Keep shit. I'm stealing that from Parallax. But I still watch some of them. I've just been falling off recently. Who can blame me from falling off on the Marvel superhero? You just watch most of them to be cringe nowadays.
Then the other one. And then I don't think so. I think it's played, from what I understand, you can confirm or deny, Bob, it plays Oppenheimer as sympathetic, right?
Oh, yeah. No, Oppenheimer's sympathetic. Louis Strauss is the villain in this movie, guys. He's just looking to increase his own personal position. And he thinks everything's about him. That's another thing, too. Like, there's this big scene.
I think most even right-wingers acknowledge that the sort of Red Scare of this era was a mistake. Now when they cry, commie, it's seen as sort of the boy who cried wolf. They managed to twist that. Like what? They're just doing another Red Scare? No. They did a Red Scare in the past. A lot of the people concerned about a lot of these left-wing activists have real concerns about it. Okay? And we're not trying to jail them. We're just trying to be like, dude, why are we just going along with these insane ideas? They keep pushing, moving the goalpost. Many things. I saw something earlier about I forget, Matt Christensen, I think, or something like that, talking about victory. Supposedly there were some people during the quarantine who got citations for violating mask policies while protesting the mask policies. So they got tickets for it. And he brought up the fact, like, they brought up, a mask mandate what's going to happen next? A vaccine mandate. And again, also the helicopter meme of the trans people, the sort of neo pronouns sort of going on. Like they used to meme the infinite genders thing. Like no one would really identify as a attack helicopter or any of these animals. It happens. Other can people. Sorry.
Between Oppenheimer and Einstein that we see.
Sorry about my rant about the Red Scare. I don't know if anyone disagrees with the Red Scare in the past. Just gave a lot of hardcore leftist people a free pass nowadays because they evoke the Red Scare as something to fear.
From his perspective, and he doesn't hear what they say, and he just sees that Einstein kind of ignores him. And so he assumes Oppenheimer said something to him about Einstein, and it like that kind of drives him, like how he's pissed at Oppenheimer for something he said to Einstein. And that's a big part of the movie. I don't want to spoil it because that's like the very ending, but he just thinks it's all about him.
The way it was. Sorry.
I was just gonna say the way the film films him is that he views the world in black and white. Oppenheimer stuff's in color. His stuff's in black and white. When you watch the trailer and you see black and white sections, that's stuff from Lewis Strauss's perspective.
Interesting.
Common technique. You have the actual main character. The focus is on them. And yeah, I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty sure the Louis Strauss character is the villain and portrayed like I think a lot of people. I don't have much faith in Nolan. I probably won't see this just because Nolan is sick of him.
Yeah, it's what I understand from the genius minds at Red Letter Media. The thing that Einstein said to him is kind of like the through line, like it's like kind of like the top in Inception. They said where it's like I don't know, something about that's kind of a focal point. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, no, it's a big.
Yeah. I don't know either. So
it's
let's see if he talks anymore.
Movie, like Barbie, and then giving Oppenheimer a pass, despite the fact that like Barbie is just like, hey, treat everybody equally, and Oppenheimer is kind of saying, hey.
Oppenheimer is about a historical figure. People had problems with freaking Cleopatra. No, make Oppenheimer a right winger. Who cares if he was left winger? That is completely insane. And like Cleopatra being black, people push back on that. We want most people who want historical pieces want historical accuracy. Who cares if Oppenheimer was left wing adjacent, even communist adjacent? That was a different type of communism. Nowadays, we have identity politics. I can almost get behind at least Marxist theory and principle. I think it's incredibly flawed philosophy, but I think the sort of the rich oppressing the poor is just something that can't be helped. Our liberal society, we're trying to mitigate that. Okay, it's about coexistence, not people put in Barbie bad and Oppenheimer good. I don't sort of like this sort of saying Barbie's bad. Maybe some people will turn around on it. Maybe they won't on Barbie, but Oppenheimer, Nolan's got some credit. Greta, no one knows what to deal with. It came out of nowhere. The marketing did not expose any of these sort of ideas. So it being a shock to the system makes sense. Okay. Maybe they'll soften to it. Maybe they'll just be like, okay, like Star Wars girl, it's not for me.
Hey, right wingers kind of suck.
Yeah. And they also, another way they failed. They could have, they could have played this as boys versus girls kind of thing, right? They could have made this the gendered movie battle, and they didn't even do that. I think it was just a certain.
Oh, you just want that sort of shit, Dean. You want a war. It's really not worth a war. It was a good idea. Good for both Oppenheimer and Barbie to sort of do this double feature marketing wise.
We can get into it about why things played out the way they did, but yeah, they really failed on a lot of levels.
Oh.
Well, I mean,
okay. So weren't people saying the black and white stuff were objective stuff? It happened. The color portion was subjective and probably dramatized. That would be interesting if true. There's going to be a link. I'm seeing if they get back to Barbie. I did read up on Oppenheimer's history, so I can follow. I just don't know if I want to do another Christopher. I really like Memento, and I even respected a lot of his early Batmans. I'm sure he did some other stuff. Andrew's here, and He has some interesting things to say about the Prestige, but I'm sure even he would say it's not an incredibly flawed movie, just has flaws. Most movies do. Some people give movies like that a pass.
They're showing themselves because like it's pure culture war. You know, actor and writer and largely white male cast, and you know it has a smart box office in Barbie, which is a huge box office. That movie is a hit, like huge. So yeah, when you break down like that, all of a sudden it's obvious what they're shooting for. They just can't resist attacking pop. Well,
Sorry.
Oppenheimer. Well,
Woman director and co-writer. Oh, okay, talking about Greta. Very diverse cast, and the diverse cast fit there. Okay, white male director and writer, largely solid box. Yeah, Nolan should have beat Barbie in reality. This is this sort of is an anomaly. So they should be celebrating this. But no, they just see the division. They're trying to be like, right, this proves they don't know anything about right wingers
the movie they give the pass to.
or centrist or anyone in that sort of ideas.
But you know, it's a white male director and writer and largely white male cast. And you know, it has a smart box office in Barbie, which is a
And you're the people obsessed with race. Stop saying the right wingers are obsessed with race. You gotta conflate it to something really twisted. I'll plug that later. I went through something with Timon last night, recording that I'm gonna edit down for consistency.
huge box office. That movie is a hit, like huge. So yeah, when you break down like that, all of a sudden it's obvious what they're shooting for. They just can't resist attacking popular media with women. They just can't. And this is just laying it bare, like so obvious.
Oh, go to hell. Okay. All those were, I will support Barbie only because I'm familiar with absurdist theater and can respect more left-wing ideology, but to compare it to Star Wars, they're going much harder in Barbie, and I can understand why. Captain Marvel, Star Wars, you got to conflate all these three. And this is just disingenuous. You're just lumping this in right away.
It's like they have a left-wing movie they could target after, but instead, we can't resist Barbie. Fuck.
The fact he's calling Oppenheimer a left-wing movie is just completely... Okay, back to my 4 Ds. Dumb, dishonest, delusional, or D, all of above here. Thank you, Bob, for bringing that back. I was missing that 4 Ds so much. Also, like some double Ds. No one heard that.
Well, and also, okay, so let's talk about the lead up to it because they didn't start grifting on it soon enough. They just didn't.
No,
I think that
on this.
If you look at like the history of them, kind of using a certain movie to like, it's woke garbage propaganda and all that, they usually, almost always, they start much.
Oh, these dudes are so dumb. This is going to have some serious division between it. As I pointed out, there's some people actually saying that it has some really solid ideas, like Chewing Head's boyfriend. I can never remember his name, Esquire something, but he's a post-liberal conservative. So that is interesting. I think he's even going to tear into, he hinted at he's going to sort of do a critique of Ben Shapiro's take on the Barbie movie. Don't know if that's true or just something he thought about. That should be interesting. I hear Arch has an interesting take on Barbie. Here, even Shad's Barbie review isn't completely horrible. I haven't watched that one. Only saw Critical Drinkers, but no, and of course Stitch and Adam. Probably a few others I've heard some hubbub about.
Much earlier in the kind of marketing cycle of that movie. Like basically as soon as the trailer drops, they are fucking grifting on it. I think with this one they underestimated. I did too, but I wasn't gonna grift on it. So I underestimated like how well it was gonna do, how many people wanted to see it, and just kind of became like this. And then suddenly for them.
It's clear, like, hey, they won't be able to get any traction on it. So obviously this stuff can't be a failure. But because we don't know streaming numbers, we can't prove them wrong.
Okay, let's just look at this example. Prey, okay. Critical Drinker actually didn't give that a horrible one. She-Hulk, again, maybe I should take a look at it through absurdist lens or some other perspective. Still think it's going to be a failure. I don't think Walters did her fourth wall breaking act enough. I think it came in just right at the end. I think there was two moments, if I'm remembering it correctly. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I saw it. And Rings of Power, that's just poorly constructed overall. Okay. Even I, who disagree with a lot of people on Barbie, is still going to say, maybe I really need to take a look through She-Hulk again. Okay. It does. I still think it's going to be garbage. Maybe I should take another look after this sort of thing. See if there's some elements, obscure elements that maybe only I'll pick up, like with the theater of absurd with Barbie and the satire, but I don't think so.
Wrong.
Right. Well, and you know, I mean, like,
also, even if that is the case in She-Hulk, She-Hulk is supposed to be in a universe that exists within certain rules, completely different in Barbie. If Barbie was a sequel to an actual movie with people that had more realistic elements to it, and then they did this Barbie movie, that would be another thing altogether. She-Hulk exists in this universe. The only way they could have had the sort of stupid, absurdist comedy would be with the fourth wall breaks for She-Hulk. Jen Walters, I think. I could be wrong on that.
Like there are some examples of, like, we do know that, for instance, House of the Dragon, you know, like that had some of the biggest numbers HBO's ever seen. You know, Prey was kind of a big deal for Hulu. She-Hulk, I mean, I don't think we got any numbers from Disney or anything, but it was being seen a lot, you know, and the thing is,
and they're talking about numbers. Why are they obsessed with numbers? Why don't they care about quality at all? I mean, yeah, numbers are important if you want to keep things up, if you want a franchise. Do they even care about keeping these up, the quality? They don't seem to talk about the quality, and this is really showing the focus here when they have something that they could analyze and be like, why is this successful? And why are the right wingers getting this so wrong? And I'm not even saying that they are wrong. I'm saying there's certain perspectives that make sense when you get into Greta's process and her history, that makes sense why the film is built the way it is. And even I don't give the right wingers too much flack for their sort of failing, in my opinion, of the Rorschach test.
If they really, you know, we said this before, if they really wanted this stuff to fail, if they really thought it was bad or whatever, they just wouldn't talk about it, because most of them, well, some of them aren't stupid enough to not understand how the algorithm works. You know, the way that they play the algorithm with their content, they have to understand it to some degree. Like when you talk about something, the more you talk about it, it becomes.
Oh, Dane, the almighty master of the algorithm. What the hell does Dane know about the algorithm? Let's hear Dane trying to understand the algorithm.
Push the algorithm, push to the front page of things and whatnot, to people's recommended feeds. And so if they really wanted this stuff to fail, which they can't, because if it fails, if they stop making woke movies, right? What are these guys going to do for jobs?
Just move on. They don't understand woke movies. God. Okay, let's see if really
they get to attack that too. Although I don't know if they've ever made a video on Kathleen Kennedy. I don't know why I put her in here.
Oh, do you think? I don't know. We have to look and see if they've ever mentioned it.
I don't know why you're not focusing on the movie. You have a chance to actually deconstruct, but then you say Oppenheimer should be political. It's not. It's a documentary piece. You're a fucking moron. Oh, I can't believe the stupidity. His lack of understanding of the other side and just the misrepresentation through the 4Ds, dumb, delusional, or dishonest, or all above. D.
Society and are now the underclass. I mean, this was Trump's 2016 campaign opening, that like we got to stop, we got to build the wall and stop people coming over, just fearing of the othering. Typically, people of less power and privilege than.
It's not really about politics.
And so they will yell about that the most. They're like,
sorry, I'm sort of flailing here. If I had a camera, you could see it. I'm like, what the hell? Oh, sure. Anti-fans show they're clearly sexist. They're fortune tellers. They have a ton of excuses whenever they get it wrong. They make predictions, okay? They need to content train. They treat their fans like idiots by doing this. No, there's a certain amount of audience capture within them. I don't know how long I can look this. You see the length of this? No, not doing it. I want to see if there's anything valuable insights from. Yeah, I'm expecting too much. I know.
Like fortune tellers, and whenever they're wrong, expect it whatsoever. Kids.
And that's fine. You know, doing is essentially for.
Okay, let me get to the next section where
so
they
they're
introduce
dropping it. And oh fuck, I'm sorry, I forgot Sound.
That was Sound of
I'm
Freedom,
sorry.
yeah, Sound of Freedom.
Fuck yeah, no, Barbie.
Okay,
but like because Margot Robbie, because
yeah.
I don't.
And how much is she in the movie?
I don't care about what
So they're getting
they're
20
using.
Yeah, 80 mil for a summer biopic is beyond great.
Numbers.
Yeah, yeah, I've done several streams on it already.
Yeah, I watched one of his streams. He barely talked about it. He's like, "Oh, Barbie, right, it's doing good numbers." Blah. Let's talk about how Melanie Mack is so racist and transphobic. Let me misrepresent her completely. Stay tuned. Probably going to premiere it Monday if I can get at least one of the edits out.
It's revealing, I think.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You know, I did. I've done a couple videos about it. I did a video right before I saw it, and then I did my review afterwards. And the first video I did was basically just talking about the numbers. I mean, like they couldn't use anything. Couldn't use Rotten Tomatoes. Couldn't use Metacritic. You know, even the lower scores are still well above.
Numbers. What about the quality
Rotten
of
Tomatoes,
the
they love to do like the verified versus all, and so their score is going to be accurate. So if you have an issue with the trans actress being in the movie, then you're transphobic because there's no mention of any trans stuff because they're all dogs.
Okay.
They can't even have.
Am I wasting my time?
Because they're not real. It was beautifully done. It's like this allegory towards gender construct because there's so many layers to this movie that, like, when we walked out, because we went with, it was a double date night and we went out together to see it.
Thank you.
And we walked out and we were just shocked at how a Barbie movie had so much to say in terms of like dismantling all of these stereotypes and things like that. It wasn't even really quote unquote picking a side. It was sort of like addressing everything. It addressed the feminist angle. It addressed the patriarchy. It addressed.
Oh God. These were all parody caricatures of all these elements. This is why the patriarchy came off more as red pill. Feminism, depending on if you get the mother's sort of feminism, which is about sort of equality, but still sort of trying to be a good woman for your male. And you got the daughter with the fourth way. Everything is offensive. Okay. All of it was parody. The movie clearly earmarked, and he's taking this as serious, this absurdist film. I am sure it's at least attempted to be absurdist. Did it succeed on all levels? I don't think it quite lived up to the hype of something like Monty Python. But you know what? I think it was a good attempt. Good mixed match with probably some missteps and some tone deafness in some areas that is causing some serious confusion among more right-leaning individuals.
You know, gender constructs. It addressed individuality. It addressed the meaning of life, like in a Barbie movie, which I thought was really interesting. It had the relationship between the mother and daughter, which was also addressed. It addressed capitalism. All of that was addressed in the movie in a way that I think was a fair assessment of all of those things.
Yeah.
Oh, please do go on. Tell us how the details in the movie actually address them. He's just hand waving this away. This is not how criticism is done. Maybe this is how they think criticism is done. You don't go into a deep reading. It just addresses it. Wasn't parodying all of it. I don't think it was a very deep critique. There is elements to touch upon and to mock upon of each of these elements. And it's not really a critique. It's more just light mockery and using the elements for the character's sake. And I think this is why some people miss the characterization of these characters. Wasn't especially deep, but it definitely, the sort of parody aspect, the stereotypicness, you can find some character traits, which would be postmodern in idea, more database checklist marked off, that would be accommodating to some geeks of Barbie and maybe even some geeks of just silly little movie references. I mean, yeah, Greta packed that full of a lot of references that I don't even think diehard movie fans will catch them all.
So yeah, I mean, and it was more of a social movie than a political movie, but they keep saying it's political indoctrination. There wasn't much politics in it outside of the President Barbie storyline. Well, it was really the only thing that was political.
I don't know if you caught the
there's
slideshow.
A lot more politics in Oppenheimer.
Slideshow Bob here had a slideshow that was really great, and it pointed out how like.
No, it wasn't. And I don't even think it was a social movie. It was absurdist comedy, a love letter to a lot of silly comedies lacing through a woman's perspective. And this is sort of why a lot of people think the men got shafted, because they sort of did. And again, I will reiterate, I feel bad for the dad if the dad really got the end of the shaft, if he was the stand-in for Ken, if the mother was a stand-in for all the Barbies. I hope that, in my head canon at least, because you can do whatever after the end of the movie, I'm hoping the daughter becomes less of a little uptight. Yeah, she'll keep on doing that sort of a SJW thing or woke attitude, but maybe she'll have more humor about it and parody it a little bit more. But all of them are rather stereotypical.
Literally, Oppenheimer has a communist sympathizing character in Oppenheimer. His wife and a lot of his friends, they've gotten in a habit of doing things.
Oh God, such. Okay, these people are not critics. They're not critics. They are fucking. They're not even consumers. They're surface level. How can these people call themselves critics? And maybe they don't. They shouldn't. They have no critical analysis at all. I don't see an inkling of this. They're just political. They're just infiltrating the freaking fandom space to try to spread their political indoctrination among them and trying to act like the heroes. They are not the heroes. These are the freaking villains of the story. They really are. They obviously clearly doesn't. This shows this even more when they have a win here and they can explain to right wingers why this isn't. They don't have a deep enough of a creek. They don't even try to freaking use logic. They have surface level baseline intelligence.
Certain way that when a specific example like this week, past weekend, these two movies comes along, it's like they didn't know how to handle it, and they underestimated Barbie from the beginning, and started grifting too late and whatnot. I do have
in your grifting and response also with them. This took everyone by surprise. Stop acting like you saw this coming from. Of course.
Question for you and for the audience,
history. Truly authoritarian leftist perspective. Rightoid also, but at least Rightoid would be honest about. They would force it into you and not have to use this freaking little pussy ass. Let me get into the culture war to try to indoctrinate people. Fucking cowards. I'm getting fucking fed up. With them.
Who has a harder job? Barbie's gynecologist or Oppenheimer's counselor?
For a movie like that are extremely good. Like their sales numbers are extremely good. Embraced meme culture. So you couldn't meme them because they were memeing themselves. So it was like,
yeah, you can't meme. Okay. I don't care if the right is sucking at the memes now, but really don't care. Box office numbers don't matter to an actual critic. You are fake fans. Get a stick up your ass. You'll probably all enjoy it. Even fucking trying to shame. That was a good movie. Them trying to meme. Oh, God. Maybe it's not a perfect movie like some people prop it up to be the new Top Gun movie. It definitely had a lot of things for the fans. Val Kilmer being in that movie was just like, it was both bittersweet because of his voice. Val Kilmer, that I probably overrated just because of some of the fan service they do it and the fact that they do the story solidly right.
It's a terrible movie, and everybody who likes it is a fucking loser. And shame on you, because opening weekend Barbie did 30 million better.
Such a fucking chud mentality Dane has. Okay, let's see if I'm about to give up. Should have gave up like 20 minutes ago, but
I'm sorry, did the bats even go up?
Nice.
Let's see if Will Scree actually brings any intelligence.
Hi,
from what I
forgot
hear,
what day it was and
he
what
is
time
the
it is.
film. From what I hear, Will Scree is the film expert. Let's see if he can give it any insight, or if he just joins in this fucking circle jerk.
So, I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because this reminds me of the tweet I did. Because Mission Impossible did well, and it's actually falling off quite a bit.
You could
just like nihilists when it comes to this stuff, and they'll just literally frame.
Oh, okay. They're talking about Mission Impossible. Okay, sorry. I thought they were talking about Top Gun Maverick. Okay. Well, I hear mixed things about the new Mission Impossible. Haven't watched it myself. Haven't watched many of them, even supposedly Fallout, which was really good. Maybe I should go back for
things
that.
however they can.
yeah, the has anybody seen Sound of Freedom? Like that's the thing. That,
what
the amount of money that it's made? Like I've heard nothing.
That we'll have to look into. This is not our own history. That this is just to get in.
Going to release it through like, hey, guess what? You can only do it in this country.
Okay, come on.
Okay, here's a theater in Kentucky. I'm going to go ahead and claim 30 tickets at
Hey,
overseas. I think
They can't set it up because you don't have like a Fandango type system. It's going through their website.
Which is why a lot of the theaters that are choosing not to carry it don't have an online system. And I also found out from someone that another reason why theaters are pissed off is the pay it forward ticket claim system.
It's similar to what.
Yeah, I don't
Like
care
a
if
studio
they're
would have to
astroturfing
discounted price.
perf in this
And,
movie.
Don't even realize they're telling on themselves. These companies don't want them going in theaters and filming empty seats.
Right.
They don't not pay for those tickets to the company.
And like,
So it is having that effect. Shit, where did it go?
New Barbie was going to be a cultural thing, like it was going to come in and make a bunch
Okay,
of money.
come on.
I pretty much expected
Talk
it to, honestly.
about Barbie.
And the second that Barbenheimer, whatever meme happened, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a thing. It's
I mean, people were getting T-shirts of that. There were people at the theater that we went to. I saw somebody with a Barbenheimer T-shirt.
Not findable because set that up. Degrees of.
Are you really still just talking about the memes and the marketing and not the actual film? Someone said he supposedly works in the movie industry. Shouldn't he be knowledgeable in movie? Okay, come on.
Brilliant movie. It just didn't make money because, well, what
Money,
the fuck
money,
does America know?
money.
But
Money.
As long ago as 1976. So that started.
And what's this? What's this? Fuck off. Okay, fuck it. Fuck it. I'm done. This is just brain dead. They don't talk about it. They truly aren't fucking fans. They just will fucking use anything they can to bash their opponents, even with such fucking brain dead logic here. Okay, done. Completely done. These bozos don't. I mean, Greta. Her talking about freaking Little Women.
This is Behind the Curtain. Today we're going to be learning.
This was a seriously good video.
It was a 15-year. I read it until I was like 15 or so, and then I didn't.
It sounded like she really respected the source material for Little Women. She tried to take a certain artistic perspective, but kept the story as it is. I almost want to watch this. Not a fan really of Little Women as a story. I don't even know if I've seen it completely. But freaking Greta's IMDb before I close out. Yeah, I went through a DJ